My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Hello everybody, my name's Ken Riddle, Hampton, Tennessee. I'd like to welcome all of you to Pardee Point, Tennessee. This is on the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad. A lot of people call it the Tweetsie. My mother's family all worked on this railroad. My great-granddaddy made his first day's pay off of the farm in Shell Creek digging the first tunnel in Doe River Gorge back there in 1880 or 1881. I'm not sure exactly when. He worked here the rest of his life. They made him retire when he was 83 years old, bridge and building superintendent. He was still climbing down inside the wooden trestles with a big iron bar to make sure that the timbers were sound. And they thought he was a little bit old to do that, so they made him quit. If they bought that railroad, they hired a lot of boys over in Avery County. In 1915, 16, railroad was really rolling. And that was a good job, those railroad jobs were. And they hired one feller over there, and he got famous right here where we're sitting. His name was Oscar Ferrell. Now Oscar was from Newland, and he got a job as a brakeman. You've probably seen these Western movies where they get out on top of the train and turn the big wheel with a stick like what I've got right there to put the brakes on. Well, they really did that here. You got to keep in mind it was downhill from the state line up here at Elk Park all the way back to Valley Forge as you're coming into Elizabeth. Right here where we're sitting is the only level place in between those two spots. And they would run away. They were hauling iron and iron ore, and it was heavy. Those little engines had air compressors on them and air brakes, but sometimes it wasn't quite enough. So they had a signal, the engineer would blow the whistle, and the brakeman would get out there and tighten them brake wheels up on those cars as they came down through here. It didn't always work. One particular day up here at the other end of the gorge, they run away. George Williams was the conductor in the caboose. Oscar Ferrell was the brakeman on the back end, and that's the man I was telling you about. Monk Bayless was the brakeman on the front. Chester Ford was the fireman, and Sherman Pippin was the engineer. Well, they ran away coming down through here. Right back up there around that curve, right where the river curves up there. They slung off the caboose and the last three cars. Run piled up right in that river, right down there where I'm sitting. Well, they got the train stopped back here behind me. You can probably see some switches back there behind me. Right around that curve, they was able to get the train stopped. They went running back up through there. Everybody on the front end went back up there. Well, the caboose had landed on top of the pipe. There's 3 boxcars in the caboose. Well, they found George Williams right quick. He was in the caboose. And they looked around and they dug around, but they couldn't find Oscar Ferrell. They looked for Oscar for a solid hour down in them smashed up cars. And they was worrying about it, said, "Oh Lord," said, "we loved him like a brother and we killed him, and he's got 3 little old young'uns over at Johnson City, and his mama's in bad shape, and she's gonna die when she hears that we killed him. What are we gonna do? We're gonna get in trouble and get fired and investigation and everything else." Well, that went on for an hour, them down in that river right there crying over them old busted up boxcars. And then they heard something a crowing like a chicken. And they turned around and looked up in the forks of a sycamore tree. And up there sat Oscar Ferrell in the forks of that sycamore tree, crowing like a chicken. And they had looked for him for an hour, but they never did look up. And so there he sat, and they got him down out of that tree. And what had happened when they went on, when the box cars had turned over, he jumped off and lit in that tree. Well, they got him down out there, and it's 1,000 wonders they didn't beat him to death. They said, Oscar Ferrell, what are you trying to do? Said, here we've been looking for you and worrying and carrying on for an hour digging around in that mess down in there in the river, and you've been up here making fun of us. And he said, I just want to see what yous is going to say about me. Now that's a true story. Old Oscar Ferrell, from that day forward, he was never Oscar Ferrell again. He was Chicken Ferrell. Because of getting up and crowing in that tree like that. Old Chick worked here till he died back in the early 50s, and he had a boy that won the Congressional Medal of Honor in the Korean War. But he got his name right down there in that river, right here where we're sitting. I want you to come and see us up here. Our railroad is at the Doe River Gorge. It's a Christian camp and conference center up here. We've got about 3.5 miles of railroad. We've got a run to come and ride the train, and tell them to call me and I'll go with you.